Hey, Team Healthy. Ready for another episode of Midweek with Dr. C? I am trying to get myself adjusted here. Man, we've had a nice, cool morning here in Waco, Texas. We started out with temperatures in the mid 40s Fahrenheit, which is really nice for us this time of year. And I was out there with Gus enjoying that earlier today with a nice walk. 45 Fahrenheit, what's that, about 8 degrees or so Celsius, something like that. Anyway, uh, get out there and enjoy it. Well, we have a really interesting set of questions here today, and I want to just jump right into it because we have so many different things to discuss. Today, I've picked up on the theme of the confusion that's created by the narcissist. One of the things that narcissists don't want is they don't want you to feel confident about who you are and how you interpret things. And you'll notice that one of the things that they repeatedly do is invalidate your interpretations and let you know that your feelings are not valid, and they'll give you alternative ideas that you're supposed to go along with. And so when you show up and say, well, I have certain interpretations or preferences or feelings or desires, it's like, no, no, you can't do that. That's wrong. And when you're exposed to that over and over, it whittles away at your sense of resolve. And that's exactly what they want. And so, one of the things that we need to do is to be aware of their confusion game with you so that you don't get pulled into their alternate reality and their insistence that you're supposed to live life according to their mandates. Keep in mind, okay, that these are people that themselves have concocted their own falsehoods. In other words, they're not truth based. They can't be honest about who they are. They don't have good wisdom. They don't have good insight. And yet, they appoint themselves as the ones who are supposed to guide you. Go figure. So that's what we're dealing with. They want to create confusion in you. And our task here is to say, I don't think I want to participate in that. Now, I want to read a very nice comment that somebody wrote to me that kind of illustrates where some of you are coming from. And I'm hoping that it's something that will prompt you to think a little bit differently. This person says, and this is a nice compliment, Dr. Carter, your warmth and kind words are so alien to me. My dad was ridiculing and called me humiliating nicknames, dismissive and cold. I thought a few minutes of non abuse was a man's love. Okay, that's the confusion. If you didn't abuse me the last time we were together for 10 minutes, that was good. It's like, no, that's not good. That's just called neutral. But when a person has been on the receiving end of humiliation, humiliating nicknames, ridicule, and dismissive and cold over and over and over, that's what I mean when I say they whittle down your sense of normalcy. I recall so much. This is a delight. This is a positive illustration. A delightful conversation with a young man in his 20s who had married, and he had had a very difficult family of origin. And one of the things that he mentioned was that with his new wife, he had to get used to parental figures who were actually encouraging and kind and nice and warm and said things like, "What's your opinion?" or "How did you arrive at that conclusion?" And they meant it in a very uplifting kind of way. He said, "Yeah, I'm having to get used to this." And that's what I'm talking about when I say, some people, they look back on their history and it's like, I didn't get that. And it's going to be a task to figure out a new normal. Again, narcissists like to keep you confused, but the more you realize, no, there's a whole different way out there, that's where I'm going. Now, for our first main question, this person says, I'm trying to trust myself after the narcissist has blown up at me so many times. When you try to do your own thing, it's hard. I still keep fearing punishment. It's so hard not to when you have PTSD. Now, earlier this week, I actually put out a video on post traumatic stress that was caused by a narcissist. And one of the things that happens in post-traumatic stress, you have an unusual set of circumstances. Trauma, it's taking those unusual circumstances to a different height or a different level where you're so debilitated and you're so diminished and punished and all the rest that it leaves its remnants that take a long time to get out of your system. And so this person is saying, I'm trying to trust myself, but I've been so exposed to the confusion of their trauma that they created. In essence, how do I get to a point where I don't continually fear punishment? There's a there's a strong distinction that I want you to make between two different styles of thinking. One is judgmental thinking, the other is descriptive thinking. Now, guess which style of thinking is more common with the narcissist? Judgmental or descriptive? And I think that was pretty obvious. They're very judgmental. And whenever you say, here's what I feel, or this is my preference, they pronounce a judgment on you. And inevitably, it's going to be on the low end. Instead, if you say, this is my opinion regarding whatever topic, rather than pronouncing a judgment, descriptive people say, well, it seems like that's a very important thing for you. And I can tell that you're very attached to that idea or that preference. Tell me more about how you arrived at that conclusion. And they just want to know you. And it leads into empathy and it leads into knowing you on a fuller basis. Narcissists, when you express a preference or an opinion or whatever, they think in terms of correct versus incorrect. And their view of correct versus incorrect is it lines up with me or it doesn't line up with me. And so and of course, narcissists with their anger issues can then come on in a very harsh and mean-spirited kind of way, rejecting and condescending toward you when you don't line up to their judgments. And so when you're exposed to it, you have this fear that this person says. So how do I get beyond this fear? First, I want you to ask yourself, how many times in your life have you felt the need unnecessarily to defend your position? And many of you, the answer is not dozens, the answer is not scores or hundreds. Many times, the answer is thousands of times. I mean, let's suppose that you're 50 years old and 365 days a year, and you kind of look back and think, yeah, since I was 5 years old, I defended myself at least a couple times a day. Okay, times 365 times 10 times 50. You see what I'm saying? And literally, you can have had experiences of defending yourself from somebody else's punitive or condescending kinds of ways that you think, well, I'm going to get the punishment all over again. What if you had been exposed to that descriptive style of thinking? When you do something, we just talk about what the meaning of it is and how you arrived at that. And narcissists are too immature and they're too shallow in their thinking. But as you learn to get beyond their punishing mindset, what you'll do is you'll recognize that these humans that pronounce themselves as being the self-appointed judge over you, unfortunately, are very misguided people. I'm going to describe who I am. And so if you say, I have a preference, and someone else says, well, that's stupid. And because of that, I'm going to take away privileges from you. In your fear, you can think, oh no, I got pronounced as stupid. In your description, you can think, well, what I said made sense to me. Apparently, it doesn't make sense to that other individual, and they're feeling rather threatened by my uniqueness. That's something I need to take into account. And you sidestep the judgmental mindset. They don't have the right to judge you. And it comes down to one core truth that I have said before, and I keep saying it again, and that is, why defend that which needs no defense? If you examine your heart, if you examine your motives and you find that you make sense and you have good intentions and good motives, trust it. And if somebody else comes along and says, I'm going to make you pay for being who you are, it's like, well, that's your prerogative. I'm going to go ahead and remove myself from your sphere of influence then. And so you give yourself permission to be separate and distinct. And so that's the how to. Now, the question is, do you have the resolve? Do you have the strength of conviction to hold on to when this old pattern just keeps coming back up? And that's going to be your challenge. But learn to distinguish between judgments and descriptions. Narcissists, in trying to keep you confused, want to judge who you are, as opposed to healthy people saying, let's describe what's going on. Two very different ways of thinking. I know that when I learned a long time ago in my 20s to start thinking more that way, it was actually pretty revolutionary for me. So I hope it is for you. Okay, another person asked the question, I'm trying to process that my partner seems to have so many strong tendencies toward narcissism and not just simply poor communication and self reflection skills. Can you discuss this difference a bit, or is it the same thing? So, here this person is living with someone who says they have strong, they wonder, do they have, is this narcissism, or are they just not a very good communicator and they're not, they haven't really had developed good self reflection skills? Um, the thing to recognize is that there are some people that may have not have been trained very well, and as a result, their communication may be lacking or their self reflection may be lacking. But non-narcissistic people like to learn. Okay. Last week when we talked about what it means to be a non-narcissist, one of the things that kept coming up with some of you as you were talking about that is non-narcissistic people are lifelong learners. And so you have this partner who may not have good communication, who may not have good self-reflection skills, but the question is, are they open? And if the answer is, well, they're open, then you've got some pretty good stuff ahead of you. But if that person, along with their poor communication and their lack of self reflection, is also highly controlling, they're pathologically defensive. In other words, they will not receive input. They have an attitude of entitlement. It's like, look, just do what I tell you to do. Okay. They're very selfish. They can't receive direction. That's when you know you're dealing with somebody who has strong narcissistic tendencies. So we can make room for the fact that we each have needs to grow, and we each have some skills that need to be refined. And you've picked up on that with your partner. But the question is, what's lying behind that, and how open to input and direction is that individual? And as long as we're on the topic, how open are you to input and direction from other individuals? That's going to be the key. Narcissists are pathologically defensive. They're so busy protecting themselves, their false self, with their own alternate reality, that when you come along and say, well, there's some other ways that we could look at this, it's like, no, I listen to no one but my own counsel, period, end of discussion. That's when you know you're dealing with somebody that's difficult. But you'll notice under our theme, confusion created by a narcissist. Narcissists don't want you to understand these kind of things, because the less you see into who they are, then the better off they're going to be. So they think. So trust what you're saying and know what you're dealing with, and know the distinction between narcissism and non-narcissism. Okay. Now, this other person says, do narcissists really think we're that stupid? Okay, plain and simple. Do narcissists think you're stupid? What do you think? I think the answer is, oh, yeah. It's in their vested interest for them to think of you as stupid. Why is that? And see, I go back to the confusion that narcissists want to generate in you. They don't want you to think well of yourself. So if you say, I have a perspective about whatever it is we're talking about. I have a way of doing things that might not be the same as yours, but I have my ways of doing things. Rather than them saying, "Well, let's talk about that. I can always expand my, repertoire." I don't think like that. If you come along and say, I'm not the same as you, then their immediate response, going back to that judgment versus description, is to judge you. Well, you don't know what you're talking about, or you're stupid, or you're an idiot. And I'm thinking, why is it so important for them to keep you down? Why do they have to keep pushing that kind of mindset? And why do they have to keep pushing this narrative that says, I'm the only person that knows, you don't. You're so lucky to have me in your world to keep you straight, you moron. But there are so many people in that narcissistic bent that that's exactly the way they think. And so when you hear that message over and over, you find yourself in that defensive posture. The narcissists really think that you're stupid. The answer is yes. Factor that in and know that much of their response to you is going to be tainted by that one notion. Okay. This next question says, this person asked, do narcissists realize how scared they are? Okay, right there, no. The narcissists realize how scared they are and how wounded they are. And the answer is, well, first of all, you pick up on it, and good for you that you do. Narcissism is based upon their own feeling of insecurity and inadequacy. They carry many unresolved hurts. You go way back into their earlier development and all the way through adolescence and then into their adult years. They don't know who they can trust. They're constantly trying to prop themselves up and look like somebody that they're not. Authenticity is not a strong suit within the narcissist. But part of the confusion that they try to create in you is they try to present themselves very much in the opposite kind of way. Scared? Nah, I'm not scared. Wounded? We've all had our issues, but I'm over all that. So, do narcissists know how scared they are and how wounded they are? I saw this come out in my partner and her mother screaming and shouting at my mother. It was truly horrifying and unbelievable behavior. Can they realize the damage they cause? And the answer is no, no, no. You know why? Because they're the victim. And so here, this partner, her mother is screaming at your mother. And it was, and in his words, horrifying and unbelievable. And does this person see the damage they cause? It's like, no. The narcissist thinks, look at what you're doing to me. Look at how you're making my life miserable. And so they rationalize their own victimization, which means that you are that idiot. You're that miserable person that's making their life difficult. And so they have such a low level of insight and awareness, thinking, why did I scream so much? Why do I yell and demean someone when I disagree with them? And it's like, well, the reason is because I have this false notion that I can elevate myself by diminishing other people. If they had insight, they would say that because that's what's going on. But instead, it's like, well, I'm not the problem here. You're the problem. And so, as part of their confusing messages toward you, they're so covering up their own unfinished business and hidden agendas and all of that, and they have such a low level of insight into that. You're going to be the recipient of that. The more you see what's going on there, the more you realize, hey, wait a minute, there's something else beneath the surface that they're not tapping into, but I am tapped into that. And so when they try to push their propaganda, machine onto you and make you out to be the one that's creating all the difficulties, it's like, nope, 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 nope. I'm on to that, and I'm not going to buy into it. And so when I see somebody that just feels the need to scream at a fellow in-law and try to make them feel like they're awful, then I'm looking at a very illogical person. Their diminishing of another person is a terrible strategy for maintaining their sense of self-esteem. I'm not confused. I trust what I'm seeing here, and I'm not going to buy into their control agenda that tends to go along with that. It's so essential for you to realize what that other person is dealing with that they won't admit to themselves, but instead they try to push onto you as a confusing message about who you are. Nope, not going to do that. Okay, another one. And this is, and continuing with this theme of the confusion they try to generate. How do you cope with a narcissist lies when you know you're right? So here you have a person that is saying, "Well, this is what happened," or "These are the circumstances that I was under," or "This is the way that I interpret things." And the narcissist can say, "No, that's not what happened at all," or "You got that wrong," or "I talked to someone else and it wasn't this way." And over time, you realize that this person is a consummate liar. They invent, how events go down, or maybe they're keeping their own secrets, and they try to divert your attention somewhere else so that they're not going to have to come to terms or accountability on some of the things that they did was wrong, and so they're dishonest. And so the question is, how do you cope with their lies, with their sense of dishonesty, when I'm trying my best to make sense? First, and this is where narcissists, they don't want you to hear this. um, Stop filtering your sense of okayness, your sense of well-being through the narcissist. And by that I mean, many times you get to the point of thinking, I've got to make that person see the inappropriateness of their lying toward me. And my response to that is, no, you don't. It would be nice if they would see how inappropriate they are and how dishonest they are, and the extent of their impact upon you. But when you start trying to play the role of prosecuting attorney towards that narcissist, they're just going to double down on their dishonesty. And they're going to more or less say, this just proves that you just don't understand life at all. And so you're trying to come up with a set of facts about me that's not accurate. And so they'll hold on to their dishonesty. So first, drop any notion that you're going to get them to see the light and you're going to get them to drop their lies. Instead, trust your own instincts about who you are. So when you say, here's what I have interpreted, this is what I know, and you know that that narcissist has not been honest with you about who knows what, it's like, well, but I'm honest with myself. I know what I know, and what I'll do is I'll establish my parameters, my stipulations, my consequences, my boundaries according to what makes sense to me. And then when the narcissist, in their dishonesty, keeps coming back saying, "Well, you just don't know what you're talking about," it's like, well, you're certainly entitled to have whatever interpretation of me you like. I mean, you're free. You get to do that, but I'm entitled to have what interpretation I have of me as well. And my interpretation of me is, I make sense right now. And so you allow yourself to distinguish yourself in an individualized way, separate from that narcissist. We so often get so tied up in this codependent dance that we stay inside the narcissist confusion by thinking, I can't move forward until I get some clarity here with that narcissistic person. I've got to get them to see what's right. It would be nice, but no, you don't got to get them, make them see what's right, uh, as desirable as that might be. Okay. Another person asked, and this is a tough one, and I know that many of you have had similar kind of questions. How do you get past the pain that they cause when they become so mean? This person that I love for 12 years is is being emotionally brutal because I figured out his game. Okay. How do you get past the pain? Well, first, let yourself experience pain. The fact is, pain is there for a reason. Ask yourself, what is this pain telling me? This person is treating me in the way they say it, in a brutal kind of way, emotionally brutal. So they must be saying demeaning things about you, and they must be being very insulting toward you. And it's like, man, this hurts. And I'm not going to say that it's anything other than that. It hurts. Okay. So accept the fact that you feel the pain and listen to it. And then the next question is, so what is your pain trying to tell you? Not what is the narcissist trying to tell you? What is your pain trying to tell you? And your pain is communicating. Yeah, just as if you have a gash in your arm, the pain that goes along with it says something needs to be different here on my arm. Well, when you have this emotional pain that is the result of their brutality, your pain is your way of saying, I don't really need to be the recipient of this brutality. And when someone treats me in this emotionally condescending way, it's wrong. And I need to take care of myself and I need to take protective measures. Therefore, what you do is again, we go back, you drop the notion that you're going to be able to change that person's mind. They may continue to be very mean, but use your experiences to, as you listen to what your pain is telling you, use your experiences to establish your boundaries, use your experiences to later show empathy toward other people who may have had some similar kinds of experiences, because they're out there, and determine that as you listen to what your own pain is trying to tell you, that you're going to be that much more of a person of resolve. I don't want to continue to put myself into those painful circumstances. And you want to be somebody that is a person that knows how to provide encouragement towards others who are similarly afflicted. And so listen to it. And we go back to trusting your own gut intuition as opposed to staying in a state of confusion, thinking, what do I have to do to get this? She uses the word emotionally brutal person off my back. Boundaries is that, but then listen to what it's saying and then take yourself into a realm where it's not going to include that. Okay, you've got it. That narcissist wants to be the chairman of your feel good committee, and they're not doing a very good job of that. You need to be the chairman of that committee. What does it take for me to get to a better place? And I'm going to go ahead and drive that bus. The narcissist wants to, but no, they've proven to be incapable of that. All right. Now, this one goes to the question of being lovable and knowing what love is. Let's keep in mind that one of my definitions of narcissism is the absence of love. Okay, and that's something that I've been saying on this channel for quite some time. This person says, "I have a question." Okay, good. I find that after years of tangling with a narcissist who said they love me, I'm not at all sure any longer what love even is. I don't know how to react or feel when a new person in my life says they love me. Would you have any insight or advice? And so I'm kind of getting the sense that this person has now disassociated, said that after years of tangling with the narcissist, now I'm apparently in a situation where maybe some new love possibilities are there. Um, sure enough, and see, this is that confusion that I'm talking about. You have a relationship with that narcissistic person, whether it's in a romantic relationship or family relationship or friendship, whatever, and you think, this is a place where love can reside. This is nice. And yet, over time, that other person may say, I love you, and yet simultaneously treat you with control and disdain and contempt and entitlement when you don't fit their schemes. It's like, well, they said they love me, but what's this all about? Why am I feeling so uncertain? One of the first things you want to recognize when you're in a love relationship is love and control towards the other individual do not go hand in hand. They do not mix well. And you want to have a sense of understanding that love and freedom are on the same side of the page. They need to be on the same side of the page. If I say I love you, I want you to continue your freedom to be who you are. When I say I love you, that doesn't mean now you have to conform to me. That's the way the narcissist thinks. And so remind yourself that when you are engaging with other individuals, you want to engage with people who allow you the privilege, the freedom to be what you are. And when you say, well, I think a little differently, if they say, well, tell me about that, I'd like to know. And they mean it. Okay, that's a positive sign. But if you say, well, I think a bit differently, and it's like, we don't need to do that. That's control, and that's them trying to shut you down in the early stages. That it may be, somewhat pleasant, but over time, the control dimension in narcissists will come about. Now, an additional thing that I would encourage for this person is when you're trying to think, well, what is love? Well, we know that love is a multi-dimension word. And so let me give you an exercise. Why don't you sit down at a table and a scratch pad, and I'm showing my age. Some of you may do it on your cell phone in your notes section. But sit down and write out the traits that you believe are consistent with a loving relationship. Traits like patience or encouragement or respect or understanding and good listening and honor and encouragement and holding them in high regard with other individuals and trustworthiness. I mean, there are all sorts of characteristics. It's like, yeah, that's what loving people do. And try to come up with a large number, like 15 or 20, and go through that exercise and remind yourself this is what love is. Now, rather than thinking I need to have other people out there to be that way toward me, which is nice, of course, then I'm hoping you can think, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit to these characteristics that I've written down. And so each day in a given week, take about 3 or 4 episodes inside one day and deliberately show yourself to be committed to those traits. For example, if love means that you're a patient person, okay, today's Wednesday. I'm going to have some episodes where I'm going to show some patience where I might not otherwise do so, but that's my way of saying I'm going to love you enough to not be impatient or irritable. Or if you say that love means that you're an encouraging person, well, I'm going to look for ways to express encouragement on today. And so, in other words, take 3 or 4 per day of these ingredients and then live into it. And then as you do that and you have accumulation of days where you have your own definition of love and you actually live into it yourself, then you know that you have the capacity, you know that you get it. And then as you're more and more consistent and dedicated to your loving nature, I'm hoping then that it allows you to seek out other individuals. It's like, this person over there, they seem to be doing the same thing, or they seem very receptive, or they have a reciprocal style. And then that's when you can be more capable of connecting well with others. But you have to have it within yourself first. So give yourself the assignment to live the life of that loving person, knowing that the narcissist couldn't do it. But then, in addition, as you do, then you're going to be able to see it more clearly in others. And again, I'm going to keep going back to my word boundaries. You want to continue to have your boundaries when other individuals keep coming toward you with a non loving style. They want to create confusion. But when you say, but I know what I know, then that's when you have more of a sense of confidence that you can draw upon. Okay. Now, another person, and this one is so classic from somebody who's been beaten down. This person says, is it wrong to move away from less mature persons or people that I instinctively feel are not in a growth mode? Okay, now notice here that implies a sense of obligation. Well, I just kind of feel obliged toward other individuals. And then when I find somebody that just doesn't seem to be on the same wavelength as me, is it okay for me to say, I don't want to continue with this? And that's the confusion part. Because it's like, well, I can't trust myself. I have to filter it through what that more controlling person says. And then this person says, I ask because I've not always been in a growth mode myself. Or do you grow into a mindset of all this judgment or do you grow into a mindset of all this judgment and shame doesn't work for me? In other words, this person is saying, well, I had my history where I didn't show good growth. Now I am. And so the implication is, am I supposed to remain patient while this person in front of me tries to figure it out like now I am trying to figure it out? And I appreciate the thought that person implies. I know that I've had my history where I wasn't always on top of my game. I'm trying to get there now. Do I need to just wait out someone else when they're trying to grow? And I'm thinking, well, if they clearly are indicating that they have a curious mind and they're eager learners, then yeah, show patience and don't move away from them. But if you find that you're trying to grow and you make comments to other individuals about what that looks like, and they seem very disinterested, or worse, they invalidate, or they let you know that they think very differently with respect to what that means, then there are times when you need to remove yourself and connect with people, at least on your inner circle, who are more consistent with where you are. I don't think that you have to be so obliged to relationships that you wind up overstaying that relationship. And then in doing so, that person just whittles down at your sense of goodness and well being. So I appreciate your desire to be patient with other individuals and to be honest about yourself. I've needed patient people, but at the same time, as you begin realizing, but not everybody else is in that growth mode. It's okay to say, I need to move towards people who can share that effort with me. Okay. Another person. Dr. C, can you please clarify the difference between healthy curiosity and narcissistic snitching, is the way this person puts it. There's an extended family member in my life who's very nosy and really cold toward me if I don't share my personal business with her. So, okay, that kind of gives you an idea. Um, there, there are people that are empathizers, and there are people who are data gatherers. You understand the difference there. The empathizer is someone, when you share your thoughts and feelings with them, that person says, well, I'd like to know you better so that I can engage more successfully with you. And so, yeah, they ask questions or they make open-ended statements. They want to know more thoroughly your backstory so they can be more of that loving person that other person was asking about. And then you have the narcissist. It's like, well, tell me more. And when they say, tell me more, it's like, I'm trying to get some bullets to put in my holster here. And so each little bit of information, each little detail that you tell me about yourself is something that I'm going to eventually use against you. That's the difference between empathy and the data gatherer, or as this person says, a narcissistic snitching. They're trying to come up with material against you so that they can use it to their advantage over you. Healthy people don't do that. Narcissists want to stay in the superior position. So if you say, well, I had this really big blunder in my past, or I miscalculated something and I need to go back and recalibrate. Healthy people say, let's talk about that. Because, I've had my humanity as well. Narcissists are thinking, ooh, I got some dirt on you. And then they use it. And then eventually, if they don't do it right away, they're going to diminish you. And in doing so, they feel like that elevates themselves. That's a very unhealthy individual. And so know the difference. And again, what the more you're educated about who you are versus who the narcissist is, the less they can put their confusion on to you. Okay, knowledge is power. You've heard me say that before. Okay, let's do one last question here. This person says, can you talk about the difference between calling someone out on their bad behavior versus poor treatment when you're triggered with narcissism? Okay, so in essence, how do you know if you're calling someone out, if that's healthy or if that's a narcissistic pattern? There's a difference when you have agitation or annoyance and anger and you need to address that. There's a difference between taking an assertive approach versus an aggressive approach. Now, when you think of that word assertive, I want you to think, what kind of connotation does that word have for you? And many people think of assertive to mean you just say whatever you want to say. And if that other person doesn't like it, that's just their tough luck. That's not assertive. That's aggressiveness. Aggressive people, they're going to take out their convictions and they're going to stand up for themselves, but they're going to do it in such a way that's very demeaning and disrespectful toward you. So when you call someone out in a healthy way, you do so, listen right there, with a decent tone of voice. You don't have to be condescending or sarcastic, but you can more or less say, here's something that's of concern to me. This is something that I'd like to see different, and I'd like you to consider A instead of B. Okay. That's a reasonable way to put it. And it's you standing up for what you believe in. Now, with the narcissist, rather than them saying, oh, good point. And I always need good input. So thank you for that. They can't do it. What they'll do is they'll come back against you and say that's stupid, or you don't know what you're talking about, or no, I'm not about to do something idiotic like that. And at that point, you've called them out. They don't agree with you. Then at that, you use what I refer to as your calm confidence. Well, I know that we think differently, but as I've thought about the difference between where I am and where you are, I'm going to go ahead and hold firmly. No further explanation required. And the narcissist is going to want to keep you agitated because you see, if they can get you agitated, if they can get you in these circular arguments, that creates the confusion, then they win. And so you don't want to play that game, the game of let's go round and round. At some point, it's like, no, I believe me. That's enough. And as long as you know that you are an open and introspective kind of person, this is not just your selfish stubbornness, then stand firm. Okay. So we're going to wrap here today, Team Healthy. And I want you to see that in their own twisted way, narcissists think it really is a good thing to keep you dysregulated, because the more I can keep you dysregulated, then the more I win. Whereas here on Team Healthy, it's like, I don't want to deliberately make other people doubt who they are. I want to be an encourager, and all I ask for is the same in reverse. And if other persons can't do the same in reverse, I believe that about myself anyway. And so I'm going to live inside my sense of well-being, and I'm going to trust myself, and I'm always going to be in a growth mode. And then knowing that narcissists can't go along with you, it's like, well, I'm not the confused person. I'm dealing with somebody who has low insight. I'm dealing with somebody who would prefer just to punch other people in the nose. I don't think I want to be that kind of person. I give myself the freedom and the permission to be quite distinct. That's how we're going to do it. Okay. So I'm going to pick up for those of you who are somewhat new with us. Yeah, I know some of you have written some questions here on the live chat. Most of you are watching this on a tape delay basis. Write your questions in the content section or the comment section, excuse me, beneath the video here, and I'll pick up on them. And then next week, Wednesday, 11 o'clock Central Time. I don't know what it's going to be your time. Those of you who are in Australia or Germany or Croatia or wherever you're watching from. And by the way, I'm so honored that so many people from such a diverse place are on Team Healthy with us. But just pick up on it, and then I will see you next time. And in the meantime, I hope you stay true to yourself, and I hope that you find your sense of steadiness and peace as you continue to move forward. I shall see you next time, Team Healthy. You have no idea how much I appreciate the work that you all are doing, and that you allow me to be a part of your journey with you. Thanks. I'll see you next time.